All right, welcome back to Level 6 Math. I'm Mr. C with Lesson 50. Woohoo! Today we're talking about the decimal number line, something that we've already done with fractions. Now we're just doing it with decimals. And then we're doing dividing by a fraction, which is a hard concept. It's a really simple concept, but for whatever reason, it's really hard to remember this one. So hopefully I can give you a few tips today that will help you remember it. This will show up on benchmark tests. This will show up at the end of the year testing. This is an important lesson. This is really gonna hopefully help you in the long run because this trips a lot of students up. So we'll go through it. So we've looked at different kinds of numbers on the number line before. We've looked at whole numbers, positive numbers, negative numbers. We've looked at fractions. So before we said this is like 1 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is tenths, so 1 and 3 tenths. That's how we've done it before. But remember, 3 tenths is just the same thing as 0.3. So we can use this as a decimal as well. We could just say this is 1.3 instead of calling it 1 and 3 tenths. So instead of the 3 tenths, we can just represent it with 1.3. So on this number line, we're again going to count how many segments. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's 4 tenths. If it's tenths, that's easy to change that to a decimal. 4 tenths is 0.4, so it's just going to be 7.4 is where y is at, okay? So point y represents 7 and 4 tenths, or 7.4. This might be a little trickier if it was in segments of 5 or something like that, but when it's in tenths, it's really easy. So here we take this. How many quarters are in $3? Now, typically when we're either multiplying or dividing by a fraction, we want to look at the language they're using so we'll know if it's multiplying or dividing. When we say what's 3/4 of 7, the word of is your trigger for multiply, right? Of means multiply. Here when we're saying are in, how many quarters are in, that's your code words for divide by. Now that is really the most important part of this lesson. If you can remember are in means divide by, that's going to help you. So when we think of a quarter as 1/4, we can say how many quarters 1/4 are in $3, right? Is that what they said? Yeah, $3. So, but see, this is why it's tricky. We're going backwards. We're saying 1/4 are in 3. And so we're writing it that way. We can solve this by thinking, well, how many quarters are in $1? We already know that. 4 quarters are in $1. So the answer is the reciprocal of 1/4. Now that is the thing that you have to remember. So we're remembering R in is divide. We have to write it backwards. And then when we're dividing by a fraction, that's the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. Now we've practiced reciprocals, so this shouldn't be too difficult. It's just going to look weird on the paper. So instead of doing 1 divided by 1/4, we're just doing 1 times the reciprocal, which is 4 ones. 1 times 4 equals 4. And is that true? Are there 4 quarters in $1? Yes, there are. So then it makes sense. Now we can take that original question and say, what's the reciprocal? 1/4 time is divided by 3. So we're going to do 3 times the reciprocal of 1/4, which is 4. 3 times 4 is 12. And so we have 12 quarters in $3. Oh my goodness. Just saying that out loud sounds confusing to me. It's a good thing we're going to practice this. Let's look at another problem. Well, let's look at this again. How many quarters are in $3? So we take the $3. R in is our divide. How many quarters is the 1/4? So step 1, find the number of quarters in $1. Multiply by the reciprocal, that gets us 4. Step 2, what's the number of quarters in $3? So it's just 3 times the reciprocal of 1/4, which is 4, and that equals 12. It's pretty complicated. Let's try this again. Row of pennies is 2 1/4 inches long. I always like to start by writing out the things. So 2 1/4. The diameter is 3/4 of an inch. How many pennies are needed to make a row 6 inches long? So actually we don't even need this information. We need 3/4 of 6. So, or in a 6. And so the in is going to be the divide. So we're going to, again, we're going to write it out 3/4 backwards. In a is the divide sign, 6. Now 6 divided by 3/4 is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal, so we can just rewrite that as 6 times 4/3. If we're doing that, I like to always just put a 1 over the 6. It's the same number. 6 times 4 is 24. Divided by 3 equals 8. So there would be 8 pennies, which kind of makes sense. So if this is 2 and it's 3 pennies, and we're going to do 6, that's going to be 3 of these. So it's going to be 9 if it was the full thing, but this is more than 2, it's 2 1/4. So 8's going to be a reasonable answer. All right, so let's see how they say it. How many 3/4 segments are in 6 inches? They're going to write it like that. Then they're going to give the reciprocal in, remember step 1 they showed before, how many would be in 1? That's just the reciprocal is 4/3. 4/3 times 6 is 24/3 or 8. So we find that there's 8 pennies. Don't forget to mark that it's pennies. We want to label our work. So how many 3/4 are in 6? Write it like that. Step 1, find the number of 3/4 in 1, which is 4/3. So now they're just saying multiply by the reciprocal and then apply that to the original problem. 6 times 4/3 equals 24/3 or 8. That's the whole thing. It's really just one concept, but it's kind of a complicated concept. So you're going to have to practice doing it a few times. Good luck.